It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day from 5 to 6 talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. You can also email me at randykabc@gmail.com. That's randykabc@gmail.com. If you're curious and you were listening to me fill in for John Phillips from noon to 3, you'd know that I've got a massive stomach bug and I'm in a lot of pain, but I'd much rather do this than sit around and do nothing and think about how much my stomach hurts. So I took a nap in between shows. I'm ready to go. We got 55 minutes together. Let's enjoy it. We start in Tarzana, where neighbors are getting Cecily Margaret Cruz levels of all the way pissed off.
And I want you to be all the way pissed off.
Because Karen Bass keeps promising to clear homeless encampments and clear RV encampments, and it's not happening, so they got to get the local news involved. Let's go to ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Some Tarzana residents reaching out to ABC 7 to tell us that an RV encampment has been in their neighborhood for years. They say the people who live in the RVs don't seem to be interested in moving to get housing. A state assembly member.
Well, I mean, it's a lot harder to operate a chop shop inside of a motel than it is in an RV.
A state assembly member has a bill that may help everyone concerned. Eyewitness News reporter Josh Haskell spoke to the frustrated neighbors and has the details on what that solution could be.
It's scary for the kids. They come after them during the day. They're always in the street.
Residents of a Tarzana neighborhood say this RV encampment on Topham Street near Victory Boulevard has got to go.
Drug sales going on in broad daylight sometimes. They're making noise.
Shouldn't that be enough? If there's an open-air drug market inside an RV encampment, why can't we call the police? Why is that not allowed? It should be as simple as that. This is a neighborhood, there's children playing, and people are selling drugs. Come on.
They're making noise, and it's disturbing because our dogs know it. They keep us up.
It actually lowers property value. It brings people who, frankly, litter, do drugs, and don't care for their neighbors.
The homeless encampment.
That's right. You got to nip these things in the bud as soon as they start because they will grow and fester. And unfortunately, the city doesn't seem to care or want to do anything about it. Bob Blumenfeld, this is your district. What the hell?
The homeless encampment has been here for a few years with roughly a dozen people living inside these RVs. There's been outreach, but residents tell us those who live here aren't interested in housing, preferring their freedom on the street.
Why is it voluntary? Why are you allowed to be in what's most likely an illegally parked health hazard of an RV doing all the drugs and chopping up all the bikes you want? Why is this allowed?
One of the people who lives at this encampment is reportedly a Lyft driver.
Didn't expect that.
Clearing RV encampments has been challenging because you have to not only find housing, but also a place for the RVs.
When we're moving people into housing, it's not clear who owns the RV, whether it's the person who's living in it.
Usually it's not. Usually there is a van lord that is renting out the decrepit RVs. They buy them at an auction. They rent them out to the homeless for $500 a month. Can't do anything about that? I thought we were working on making that practice illegal.
Housing, it's not clear who owns the RV, whether it's the person who's living in it.
Assemblymember Rick Chavez Zabur has introduced
2 days in a row with Zabur.
Has introduced a bill sponsored by Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass that would use available Caltrans parking lots to store RVs.
Wait, you mean like the ones under the freeways that caught on fire and melted the 10 freeway? Considering how volatile some of these RVs can be, don't know if that's the best answer. If these things are a health hazard and they're not drivable, why can't we crush them into a cube?
In a statement, Councilmember Bob Blumenfield, who represents Tarzana, said in part, local homeless service providers and my team have been working to get the people at this location into housing.
Yeah, how hard? It's been there for years.
The courts have been clear that regardless of if the RV is operational, if someone is living in it, we cannot tow it unless the occupant agrees. This reality will not stop my team from continuing to do outreach and work with the occupants to accept housing and services.
Mayor Bass. So they go over there every day and they beg and plead, and the drug addicts don't want to do that because they'd like to continue doing their drugs in the RV. How did we get here?
Mayor Bass's office tells me they're working on scheduling more inside safe operations for RV encampments and say one will take place later this week.
Yeah, she told that to Joel Grover last month, and then the month before that. There are a lot of promises, and there's not a lot of follow-through. And it's not just in Los Angeles County. It's throughout the entire state, because an audit was finally done on just how effective all of the money we've been spending to house the homeless has been in the state of California. We have spent $24 billion over the last 5 years, and we actually don't have any way to track if the programs have been successful. And the number goes up every single year. For more on this nonsense, let's go to KTVU Fox 2.
A new statewide audit finds California is spending billions of dollars on homelessness and has limited ways of tracking where that money is going.
Doesn't Gavin Newsom always say when he wants more money for the homeless, it's all about accountability?
Accountability.
The audit shows there is literally no accountability. We're doling out the money, and apparently that's the success, even though we have no results to show that what we're doing works.
There are not clear plans in place, even at the local level, to establish goals that would eradicate homelessness over any period of time.
State auditors found California has spent $24 billion on homelessness in the past 5 years, but they can't tell how effective those funded programs have been. Good evening. I'm Julie Hayner.
And I'm Mike Niebeck. The report released this morning says the crisis affecting hundreds of thousands of unhoused people is not improving. KTVU's Crystal Bailey has been digging into the report and has more on the lack of organization on addressing this very big issue here. Crystal.
If you're going to spend that much of our money and you keep asking for more, shouldn't you have some results to show us? Even show us that it was a failure, but no, we have no way to track the results. That doesn't work.
Well, Mike, Julie, the audit assessed the cost effectiveness and impact of homelessness programs at the state and local level and found that between 2018 and 2023, the number of unhoused people is going up and the outcomes are uncertain, even though billions was poured into housing programs. More than 180,000 Californians experienced homelessness in 2023. That is a 53% increase from 10 years ago in 2013.
That's right. The number went up 50%, even though we're spending more and more and more money. And Gavin Newsom always loved to tout that, the state wasn't even doing anything about this before I got there, even though he was lieutenant governor. It was all up to the counties and the cities. Well, since you've spent a whole bunch of state money on this problem, the problem has gotten worse. Let's just do some quick fun math here, shall we? If you have 180,000 homeless people in the state of California, and we spent over the last 5 years $24 billion. What does that add up to? Well, let me pull out my handy calculator here. 24 billion divided by 180,000 means we could have cut a check to every single one of these people for $133,333. Where did all this money go? Because you look at the situation and it's very clear $133,000 worth of housing and services has not gone to every single person, when we have most of them still on the street.
The state auditor's report says they're not sure whether the homeless programs in place are working, even though they cost the state $24 billion.
That's really a vote of confidence right there.
It all started when Senator Dave Cortese visited one of the largest homeless encampments in San Jose, asking the city whether the money spent on housing programs was working. When he found insufficient data, he and other state leaders penned a letter asking the state auditor to look into it.
Up until last year, midway through 2023, there was no centralization of data around the flow of dollars from the state.
How could we not be doing that? How could we not be at least tracking the successfulness of the programs unless we knew the programs wouldn't be successful? But there's a lot of connected friends who run there's plenty of good nonprofits, but there's also plenty of crooked nonprofits that are profiting off of this crisis.
2 local jurisdictions.
The audit collected information from 2018 to 2023, reviewing 2 cities. One of them is San Jose.
So I think what the report's clear on is we need an all-of-the-above approach. We need low rungs on the ladder.
No, all of the above approach did not work. It went up 50%. We spent $24 billion. Try again.
We need low rungs on the ladder, basic dignified shelter, as well as the long-term solution, which is building more affordable housing.
How's that been going? And by the way, sometimes I like to point this out as well. For all the talk that Gavin Newsom and the Assembly and the state Senate have had for the past decade about making housing more affordable, building more affordable housing, the cost of housing has exploded. Everything they're doing is having the opposite effect. And if you happen to be a homeowner and your $500,000 Valley home went up to $1 million, that's great. But for everybody else, this state gets more and more and more expensive for everything that they do. It's almost like if they did nothing, the problem wouldn't be this bad.
We need a comprehensive framework for data and performance measurement.
In the thorough report, auditors say the California Interagency Council on Homelessness is responsible for coordinating and evaluating the efforts across the state. The audit says the council has not established a consistent method for gathering information on homelessness programs, cost, and outcomes.
So we're just writing blank checks to the counties for whatever program they want, and then Gavin Newsom is writing blank checks to all the developers for these Project Room Keys and Project Home Keys, including that crooked developer from Shangri-La that was taking all the money he was supposed to get to house the homeless and renting a massive mansion in Beverly Hills and treating his now ex-girlfriend to a very lavish lifestyle.
A spokesperson from the
feel like if we had some trackers on results, we would have caught that one early.
A spokesperson from the council says in a statement, in part, that the audit's findings underscore a need to continue to hold local governments accountable who are
there's that word, Gavin.
Accountability, accountability, accountability.
Local governments accountable who are primarily responsible for implementing these programs and collecting data on outcomes that the state can use to evaluate program effectiveness.
And Gavin always loves to say, yeah, we're going to see actual results. And if we don't see results, we're not going to give you the money. Well, this shows you that that's absolute crap.
Because it's true.
Hey, I have some drops of Gavin here I don't usually get to use. I do love that one.
And went on to say the council continues to improve its ability to ensure that taxpayer dollars are spent judiciously and effectively.
Well, if we spent $24 billion and the problem went up by 50%, they are not being spent well at all.
This audit will establish somewhat of a blueprint for legislative direction and guardrails going forward, to improve upon some of these areas, these deficiencies and these systemic issues that the audit calls out.
There was an audit done by the people that are suing LA County and LAHSA for their ineffectiveness. And that audit showed that the majority of the programs that LAHSA was funding did not work, showed no noticeable sign of preventing homelessness. Like every time you hear, we got to keep people from becoming homeless, we got to do rental assistance. Those programs have never been shown to work.
And the state auditor made a couple of key recommendations to mandate reporting, suggesting that legislature require the council to annually collect and report outcome information beginning in September 2025. Now, also, Senator Cortese also says that auditors tell him there is no evidence of fraud. He doesn't think that the state should stop sending funding. He says there just needs to be more transparency so that the money...
Nothing crooked going on here. We spent $24 billion and the problem got worse by 50%. But it's just that we're incompetent. And it is true. Whenever you're talking about California government, Southern California government, you always want to assume incompetence over malice. I don't think there's that many people involved in this that are like evil and want to profit off of human suffering. But boy, is there a lot of incompetence on board.
Tell him there is no evidence of fraud. He doesn't.
And there's also the fact that nobody in elected government can admit when they're wrong. Gavin Newsom will never admit something he tried failed. How about a little humility? How about a little being sober?
Tell him there is no evidence of fraud. He doesn't think that the state should stop sending funding. He says there just needs to be more transparency so that the money can be allocated in a way that best makes the most impact.
So how does the actual passing of Proposition 1 here affect these programs?
Oh, yeah, we're getting $6 billion more.
These programs.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at more than $6 billion being added to mental health and beds and services here. But I did reach out to Governor Newsom's office, and I did not hear a response. So there's really no telling how Prop 1 could affect this.
Yeah, well, voters passed it. They have a right to know, like, where the money is going. All right, Crystal, thanks you.
Crystal.
The state spent $24 billion in 5 years on the homeless, and the number went up from 130,000 to 150,000. And there is no accountability for anybody.
Accountability.
Nobody's getting fired. No programs are getting canceled. Nobody's admitting that they're failing, and they can't even track success. They can't even track statistics. My question to you at 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222 is this, because obviously the people that we have in charge now are failing at their jobs. But you know what? You people out there, you're smart, you're creative, you might have some wiser ways to spend this money. So right now, I want you to be Big Daddy. If I gave you $24 billion to solve the homeless problem, how would you do it? Because the ideas that we're having right now show no results. How would you solve the homeless crisis? I'll give you the $24 billion up front. Not really. 800-222-KABC, 1-800-222-5222. Let's start with one of our favorites, Patty in Simi Valley. Patty, hello.
Patty has a great plan. Randy, listen to this plan. It's a brilliant plan, and it's foolproof. You're giving me $24 billion to solve the homeless crisis. Here's the first thing I would do. I would do an audit on the homeless and find out where the homeless come from. If they come from New York or Boston or Chicago, the cold parts of the country, I would write them out a check, 2,000 or 3,000. There you go, and put them in an airplane and send them back. And we wouldn't be running around with our heads cut off trying to find them a house that they don't even want. That's the first thing I would do, Randy. And straight away the homeless would be at least 50% less. The second thing is, Randy, about the RVs. There is no law on the books that says you cannot tow an RV. That's just a stupid City of LA policy that they brought up. They put that.
No, they love making excuses about this stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. Just look at the anti-grid lanes on our freeways and our streets. If you park your car in them anti-grid after 4 o'clock in the evening, that car is towed. No matter if you're in it, that car is towed. If you're too long at a meter, they come and tow your car. Why can't we tow an RV? What's wrong with these people?
Oh, they'll say, and I've literally heard it inside city council transportation meetings, we don't have anywhere to put the RVs, so we have to let them sit there.
Wow.
Now, Patty, I got one final question for you, because I'm giving you that $24 billion. And, I love your idea of sending people back to their families, back to where they're from, because we've got so much of this money, $24 billion, which comes out per capita to $133,000 per homeless person. Can we spring for business class?
Big time. But big time, absolutely. But here's the joke, Randy. Here's the biggest joke of the lot. So the calculation that you just did is $133,000 per person, and they're still homeless, Randy. It wasn't even resolved. If we got some results, okay, that's good, but they're still homeless. We spent the money and they're still in the streets. How does that make sense?
It really does not. Patty, thank you so much for calling. We love you, buddy. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. I'm going to give you $24 billion. How would you solve the homeless problem? Because Gavin Newsom spent $24 billion and the problem got 50% worse, and they have no way to track the results. 800-222-KABC. Let's go to David in LA. David, hello.
Hey, so recently a friend of mine who's a social worker broke it down as to where all these homeless people are coming from. And what he explained was that from his experience working in addiction rehab when he was certifying to become a professional, is that there are people who are running rehab centers, clinics, and also halfway houses for people who have insurance that covers rehab. And what they do is they send out phone number on it. It doesn't explicitly say you must live in California, about addiction recovery services. And a family member or an addict will call this number and say, hey, I have an addiction to whatever, and I want to get treatment, or I heard about your program in California. And so can you guys check my insurance and see if I am covered in California? And they'll say, yes, you are covered in California up to many thousands of dollars per day, which is what we charge. Ooh, wonderful. So why don't you get yourself onto an airplane or convince a relative to fly you to California, and then you will have a place to live, a rehab to attend for a week or however long until you drop out. And when you don't actually want to get better and recover from your drug addiction, you can be free to roam the streets of Los Angeles, California, or wherever else in our beautiful state. And that's where these people are coming from.
Oh, you are so right about this, David. This has been such a massive scandal that does not get reported. There are tons of these really, really, really fancy rehab centers in places like Malibu and even Orange County. And you know what they do? They spend a whole bunch of money advertising on late night TV in states like Ohio and Michigan and Wisconsin, saying, come to California, we'll give you the rehab. And based on the way the laws are now, even if you're not from the state of California, the second you step on California soil, you qualify for 30 days of addiction rehab with Covered California. On day 31, they kick you out on the street.
Exactly. And so the people are coming here, maybe not even wanting to get treatment at all, but just want a free vacation in California and then a way to move here without actually having to do any of the work involved for people who are from other states like myself.
You are so right. And I'm so glad that you're aware of this. We're going to do our job to spread that because not enough people know that that's a big contributor to this. David, thank you so much for the call. Appreciate it. It is the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790 KABC. We're here every single day, 5 to 6, talking about the local issues that matter to you most and taking your phone calls. I want to talk to you right now, 800-222-KABC. The state of California, thanks to a new audit, we found out that we spent $24 billion in the last 5 years on homelessness, and the problem went up 50%. So if I gave you $24 billion, how would you solve this problem? Let's go to Henry in Anaheim. Henry, hello.
Hey, Randy, what's going on, buddy?
Doing great.
The reason why I'm calling this, we're using all this money. Why can't we open up the old hospitals where we can bring in the veterans, the people that actually need help, get some, medical or some medication, and all the schools that they're shutting down? Why can't we, instead of building low-income housing, why can't they turn the schools into homeless shelters? So we're not wasting money on building new buildings where we can upgrade the schools or these hospitals where all these homeless people can get help.
We've been watching the owner of the LA Times, Patrick Soon-Shiong, purchase and just sit on the old St. Vincent Medical Center in LA for 4 years now? He only bought it for $135 million. That would house a ton of people and get them treatment that they need. But apparently that's not compassionate. Hospitals are not compassionate. Only housing is.
Yeah. And you know what, Governor Newsom, he's got his wineries. He doesn't care about anybody else. By just himself. Same thing as Karen Bass. They just need to use their mind. They got an education or whatever they have. Won't they put it into use instead of listening to everybody else? That's why they got voted.
Right. Thanks for the call, Henry. Appreciate it. 800-222-KABC is the telephone number. Let's go to David in Santa Monica. David, hello.
Hey, Randy. So, $24 billion, and we got 50% more. So I assume that's supposed to be spent. So we reduced the number, right? So that's obviously not working through all the waste, corruption, and just incompetence. And all that money does is just encourages and just enables more. So when you encourage and you enable, you get more of the same thing. So my plan might seem callous and it might seem a bit flippant, but if you wanted to reduce the number, just instead of a check, give that money in cash and then have a nice bonfire with it. Just burn it. And at the end of the day, you're going to have less homeless people.
Hey, and it'll keep the ones in the winter warm in Northern California. Thanks for the call, David. Appreciate it. Let's go to Michael in downtown. Michael, hello.
Hey, you always take my call. Thank you, Randy. I appreciate you. And you do a great show, and I think you'll feel better tomorrow after a good night's sleep. Don't worry. Drink a lot of water. But I want to tell you, I'm not going to spend a penny of the $24 billion. We can give the $24 billion to animal shelters and zoos and give them big cages since they're great. But what you do is like the first caller, you send people back where they come from, because L.A. is not a sanctuary city. It's more just an open drug market city where you can sleep and no one bothers you on the streets and you just do your drugs on the streets. Bottom line is, let's get to it. These cops aren't doing their jobs. The reason why there was no homeless in the past is because the cops didn't let it happen. They got the badges and the guns. All the good cops turned in their resignations. Now we're dealing with cops that are desperate for their paychecks. They're trying hard to not get blamed, but at some point, this has happened through history in other countries. You ruin cities, they're ruining the country. It's all on purpose. Look, you got to get the homeless in jail. They'll sober up. Stop with the kissing, all this, The first caller's right, sending half home. The other half that stays is going to have to forcefully sober up. They'll thank you later. Bottom line is they already know that. You are doing a great show today, Mr. Wayne, because you're really getting to it. You sound a little angry today, and I like it. Let's make more of that. It's like a town square show. This is the top show in L.A. right now. A lot of people talk about this show. Randy, I know you're working hard doing double shows. Thanks to Mr. Phillips, but you're doing a huge thing with this Town Square show, and we're going to get it straight. All the people in L.A. are great. They're taking advantage of the people in L.A. that aren't speaking up because, they're working hard, and then you got behind the scenes Black Lives Matter taking our money, doing a different agenda. Okay, they're good people too, but we got to all just basically don't worry about the money. Just start enforcing the laws. We got to get the police to do some stuff here. Like they got.
Well, we got to let them do their jobs. The problem, Michael, has been that we handcuffed them with the laws that we changed, and members of the city council and the mayor not wanting the police to do it because we don't want to put these people in jail when they are harming themselves or breaking laws or harming other people. Thanks for the call, Michael. Appreciate it. Look, if we did that, I would argue pre-Prop 47, when a lot of these people were in prison and in jail, things were better than they are now. Prison might not be the greatest place. In fact, it's a horrible place. But living on the street and enabling people to kill themselves with drugs, I think is worse. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on Talk Radio 790. We're taking your phone calls, 800-222-KABC. If I gave you $24 billion, how would you solve the homeless problem? Let's go to Janice in Torrance. Janice, hello.
Hi, Randy. What I would do is spend whatever it takes in investigation and accounting to ferret out the obvious corruption that is going on at the top. This makes Jose Huizar look like little potatoes. There has to be corruption.
It really does.
And
we're
until
talking about
you ferret that out,
billion.
Right. Until you ferret out the bad actors, it doesn't matter how much we spend. None of it will solve the problem. Then I would build like college dorms. Rather, homeless people don't deserve an individual apartment for each of them. We can't make it comfortable to be homeless. So college dorms seem to be less expensive and not as comfortable, and we can house more people if the true intent is to get them off the street. And then those people who do not want to do that, they need to go to jail. If you're on the street, you're camping on the street, you got to go to jail for loitering or whatever. We have to make it uncomfortable to be homeless. We cannot allow them to continue to do drugs or petty theft or whatever.
You're right. We're making it way too comfortable. Thank you so much for the call, Janice. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jim in Hacienda Heights. Jim, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing great.
Okay. Well, you had a lot of good ideas there, but I like mine. Give me the $24 billion. I'll be just like a politician. Buy me a villa in Santorini, Greece, and one in Venice, Italy, and move, and I wouldn't be homeless, and there'd be no money for the homeless people now, and they'd have to find another place to go.
You know what, Jim?
And I'd be
it
happy.
would be as effective as what we're doing right now. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC. Let's go back to the phones. Luke in Orange County. Luke, hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi, this is Luke.
Hey, Luke.
Hi. I want to give you one example of how the money is spent. So from there, you can maybe understand how the money could have been spent. So in the city of Lake Forest, the city council decided to give money to a charity in Irvine called Families Forward. And Families Forward was planning to renovate a fourplex in Costa Mesa. And that's planning. There's not an actual property at the time. While there are people dying out on the streets, 500 died in 1 year in Orange County, homeless people. That's not a good plan. There are people
No, it's
who are
really
not
not.
drug addicts, who are not alcoholics. There are people that I know, I travel a lot because of work, who are working at your Walmart, your Albertsons, at your restaurants, washing dishes. Yes, they are dropping off your groceries at your door. That's not a good plan. They first ask for $1.4 million, and then they ask for an additional $200,000. They get the money. But I know the system. If you go to social services or anywhere here, it's not easy to get that kind of money as an individual. What could have been done?
No, what we're doing is making absolutely no sense with programs like that. Thank you so much for the call, Luke. Appreciate it. Let's go to Brian in Northridge. Brian, hello.
Hey, how you doing? So great question, and you should probably keep this rolling because I think you're going to get some genius solutions. But I would suggest to you, and I've done homeless ministry, and I've been involved in people's lives for many years in different capacities, and I'll just tell you, people are homeless for different reasons, number one, and that's the elephant in the room. Everyone puts them in a category they're not. I have found that people are in three main categories. After looking them in the eye, talking to people, and just coming to understanding of where they're at or how they're stuck. Some simply need an opportunity, maybe a third. And if we can connect them with opportunities where we can reward their progress, I think you can coach 1/3 of the people out of this. And that, to me, is the win because that is doable. The next third is they have psychological problems. And I'm not saying addiction. Some have psychological problems. They need a medical assessment. Maybe they need meds. Maybe they're bipolar. There's all kinds of issues going on there. But that would take a little intervention in that respect. The other third that we're all pretty well aware of is addiction. And unfortunately, unless people are sick and tired of being sick and tired, you cannot help the addicted. And you can't actually make it easier for them. You got to rock bottom is the only solution. And state can't come along and pave a way and give them 3 hots and a cot. So addiction is a whole other issue, but I think this would eliminate 1/3 of people seeking opportunity right away, and maybe half of those with psychological problems if they're willing to be treated. And then the whole problem is the assessment and the intake. If we allowed people to assess the homeless population and help those willing to be helped, this is where you'd find experienced non-government organizations like Hope of the Valley and others that are not tied to the dysfunction and the poor monetary policy and no accountability. You find people that do what they do, and they've already been doing it. You fund them, and you get rid of the red tape, and you don't constrain them. But
You're totally right, Brian. We have so many programs that do work that we don't want to associate with, like the ones Ralph's about to suggest. Ralph in Glendora, hello.
Yeah, hi. The $24 billion, have it go to the Union Rescue Mission or Salvation Army or other charitable organizations with proven results and whose CEOs don't have enormous salaries. I mean, KBC Radio has a weekend show called, I believe it's called Amazing Stories, where they give actual examples of how these programs are working. By the way, great callers, great show.
Thank you so much, Ralph. Appreciate it. He's right. And if you gave Andy Bales half of that money, 1/10 of that money, he could do incredible work with it. And the Salvation Army, a week ago on John's show, we talked to Tom Wolf, who is a recovery advocate. Salvation Army was how he got clean, and he was on the Tenderloin. Real quick, you got 30 seconds. Steve in Lake Forest. Steve, hello.
Randy, real quick, hey,
the only person doing anything for homelessness and crime was Sheriff Alex Villanueva, and the Board of Supervisors couldn't wait to get rid of him, and the voters voted him out.
You're right. He was doing a ton of work on that. Steve, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate it. Just the fact when he censused the boardwalk at Venice and found that most of those people were not from this state. Some of them weren't even from this country. Great suggestions. I'll divvy up the $24 billion among all of you. But thank you so much for putting up with me and my fever dream ass for 4 hours today. I'll see you tomorrow, hopefully a little less sickly. It's the News Blitz with Randy Wang on KABC.